Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It's really always a pleasure to spend Sundays with you and to see your bright and shining faces. And I'm happy we can share this time together. This past week was the 11th anniversary of the passing of the founder of our faith, Reverend Moon. And in some ways, it feels like it really wasn't that long ago. In some ways, it feels like a very long time ago. When Pastor Mike and I moved here to become pastors, it had been 2 years. And I remember at that time, it was still really a time of mourning. And True Mother at that time was, for every day for 3 years, she would make the trek up the mountain to his grave and offer prayers and food offerings. And anytime we saw her, it was really hard to see her because she looked so heavy, not weight-wise, like she had a lot of weight on her shoulders. And I think overall it was a time of kind of turmoil and what are we doing now and where are we going and what is supposed to happen? We didn't know what to do in some ways. But then I remember 1 year later, it was the 3rd anniversary of True Father's passing. And I'm trying to remember. I think that was the year I actually got to go to Korea and to participate in that memorial service. And I got to see True Mother in person. And at that point, and then there was like a switch. She was like, okay, the mourning time is done. And now it's time to pick ourselves up and to take True Father's legacy and move forward. And I feel like from that point, she has never looked back. So I'm not going to spend this time talking a lot about how much we miss our true father. But something I have been thinking about a lot, and even a few weeks ago, I gave a message on how do we live a life? How do we live a whole life of meaning and conviction? How can we find a purpose that sustains us through all the different seasons of our life? And how much, and what kind of value can we give to the world in that time period that we have? And something I've been pondering a lot is, what is truly worth investing your whole life into? What actually lasts? Because I don't want to make a lot of sacrifices for something that won't matter to anybody in 20 or 30 years. But I am willing to make sacrifices and go through challenges for something that I feel is truly valuable to God or valuable to this world. But then I ask, well, what is that dividing line though? At what point is the cause great enough to make it worth it? Or at what point is the sacrifice too great? And I feel like these are questions that anybody who is trying to achieve something great in their life has to wrestle with. But I feel like these are questions that True Father tackled early on in his life, didn't struggle with so much after he made his commitment and he followed through to the end. I came across a friend's Facebook post recently who was really kind of questioning, why should I try so hard in my life? It reminded me a little bit of this Bible quote that you may have seen before. You do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. That there's a song that takes this verse, I am a candle quickly fading, a vapor in the wind. And in my friend's Facebook post, she was talking about, well, like in 100 years, all of us, everybody in this room is not going to be here anymore. We'll all be buried. There will be strangers living in our homes. They don't care about us. There will, the things that we work so hard to build, many times don't go past one or two generations, don't last beyond that. And does anybody really give much thought to their great-great-grandfather that they never met? I feel like we're a little bit trained in our faith to think about our ancestors. But even so, how much time in a day do we spend thinking about it, And the point of her kind of musings was, don't try so hard. It's all going to disappear, so just enjoy what life has to offer. Live in the moment, live with what you've got, enjoy the people you have, but don't try so hard for great things because they'll all disappear anyway. It's a little bit like that song, Dust in the Wind. Anybody heard? And I think, there's something to be said for that kind of perspective. It's good to be humble and to not think so much of myself that, to be humble to the fact that we're here for a short time. I'm, in the grand scheme of things, I can seem very small. And then we started school this week, and we had drop everything and read time. And to be a good model, I dropped everything and I picked up a book called The History of the World in 100 Pictures. Really cool. And it started from about 20,000 years ago, and early cave drawings and things, and took through Chinese dynasties and the Mongols and Egypt and the Middle Ages and Charlemagne. And I noticed kind of a pattern that a monarch or a dynasty or an empire would rise and seem just absolutely impervious and bring so much culture and art and innovation, and then about 300 years later, be completely wiped to the ground, and another dynasty would start. So, and I feel like in some ways this kind of tends to add to that perspective of like, why do we try so hard? It's all going to disappear. And yet, in spite of all that, there are people who change the course of history. There are certain truths that outlast an empire or a country even. And the people who change the course of history, the people who actually make those differences, they don't fall prey to this kind of thinking that, oh, it doesn't matter anyway, because it'll all be gone. My life is insignificant. They're not arrogant, but they're thinking on a very different level. When I think about Reverend Moon, when I think about our true father, he was somebody who wasn't just living for the moment and how he could feel pleasure in the day, or how to build up his success, or even how to provide a good life just for his family, which is not an unworthy cause. Or even, he wasn't even thinking on the level of what can I do for my country? How can I improve South Korea to be a superpower in the world? And I won't say that he wasn't thinking that either. But the level that he was thinking on was considering all of human history And considering where humanity has come from and the trajectory that it's on, where will it be in 1,000 years? Where will it be in 20,000 years? And I think that his life is evidence that he lived in that kind of frame of mind and reality. And that even when he was doing simple things, like learning ping pong, or starting an ocean fishing business, that he wasn't doing it just for the joy of playing ping pong or for the economic success of a business. He was doing it with a mindset of what kind of character do I need to develop through my actions that will prepare me for the challenges ahead? What kind of a business do I need to create that will solve the problems of world hunger in the future? That everything he did fit into this kind of global, historical view of the world. And I think that that's something that's just fascinating, and it's commendable, and it's rare. I found this quote by our true father that I wanted to share with you, and I really love it. And I think it also points to the fact that, yes, true father had this kind of a mindset and was thinking this way, but he's not so far removed that we can't attain a similar kind of level of meaning and value in our own life. So this is his quote. What is true never perishes. So many things are dust in the wind or will crumble, but what is true never perishes. It keeps growing. Therefore, you have no reason to despair, knowing that there is God, the subject, who will take absolute responsibility for whatever you leave behind for his sake. He will find the people who are willing to inherit the tradition of your commitment and expand it to the world. A tree grows silently to maturity, but when the time is ripe, it naturally bears fruit, which the entire universe will then be able to appreciate. If this is true of a humble tree, how much more is it true of men and women who are laying the foundation of goodness for the future of the world? So I think the real question is not necessarily what I'm able to do in my own life and with my own actions and what results that has in my lifetime. The real question is, what do I leave behind in the people around me who are still here after I'm gone? So I love this part. It says, God will find the people who are willing to inherit the tradition of your commitment and expand it to the world. So when Jesus died on the cross, there was no semblance of Christianity on this earth. At that point, he had no followers. Even his own disciples had abandoned him. And it seemed like the end. So in terms of what he had done, it almost seemed like there was nothing. And yet he had spent 3 years of his life in complete service and devotion and love with the people around him. And the ones who knew him best, it sank into the deepest. So it seemed like it was all over, and yet he resurrected, and the fire that he lit in the hearts of his disciples from that point on were enough to transform history. Even though the disciples actually missed a lot of what Jesus was trying to say. They misunderstood a lot of what Jesus was trying to say. Yet they experienced a level of God's love that had not been experienced on the earth prior to that time. And it was a reality to them. And that's what they preached to the best of their abilities. And that preaching of love and that taking that experience of having touched God's heart and God's love, and then it's like that song, it only takes a spark to get a fire going, right? That spark would light the spark of original minds around the world. And that love for them was worth sharing, and it was even worth dying for. So you could say that it wasn't necessarily the miracles that Jesus did or even the words that he preached, because many of them were lost never got recorded. Many of them got recorded and mistranslated. But it's the love of God and the love of Jesus that still is transforming hearts today and saving people's lives. So you could say that it was God's love realized, God's love actualized, that was actually Jesus' legacy. And I feel the same way about our true Father. You know, it's only been 11 years. It's a little too soon, I think, to say what the full impact of his life is on this earth. And reality is we might not even see the full impact of it in our lifetime. But I think he brings something new that even Jesus, though he wanted to, was not able to express. He recognized that the world suffers because God's real, true, actual love is missing from our families. And that because of that missing piece, children grow up without a real knowledge of who God is, because we are supposed to, your Father has said many times, children shouldn't have to believe in a God because their God is their parents. God's love should be so real in their parents that they already know God's love through them. And then that expands to their siblings and to their classmates and to their workplace and to the world. And together with True Mother, they gave us a formula of how to restore this fullness of God's love in our families. That's something that the world truly hasn't seen before. So with Jesus, I think his true legacy actually began in the people that he touched and what they did and the love that they shared. And as with Jesus, I think that Reverend Moon's true legacy actually lies with us and families. So this message is really more of a calling than it is a memorial service or something, but it's more of a reflection on why are we here? If without our true parents, none of us would be sitting in this room. Whether you met True Father when you were very young and you were in the movement for 40 years, or maybe you never met him in person, maybe you've only been here for a week or two. Nevertheless, you would not be here without our true parents and without our true Father. So then my question comes back to, and this is a question I think that we all just have to look inside and answer for ourselves, of what is truly worth investing your life into? In consideration of talking about legacy and true love and what truly changes lives and what truly lasts beyond our beautiful homes and beyond our cars and beyond even countries and political systems and anything that we kind of tend to see as our reality. But what can we invest into that truly lasts? what is a great enough cause for me to commit to and to be willing to make some sacrifices for, to be willing to overcome challenges for? Because it's no fun to do that. If I were purely going by the, live in the moment and enjoy life kind of thing, then there'd be no reason to overcome challenges. But when we have a calling that's great enough, then we can, I would say they're not even really sacrifices, they're investments. We can make investments for a better future. It's like that quote, the truly wise man is a man who plants a seed of a tree, knowing he will never sit in its shade. So in some ways, that's a sacrifice, that's an investment, that's an effort made that you don't get to reap the fruits of. And yet, is it still worth doing? We have to answer that question for ourselves. I'm just going to finish by reading this quote once again because I feel like there's so much in it, and there's a lot to. My whole message is really encapsulated in this, so I'll give it to you again. What is true never perishes. It keeps growing. Therefore, you have no reason to despair, knowing that there is God, the subject, who will take absolute responsibility for whatever you leave behind for his sake. And I think True Father said this because he knew it in his heart for himself, and he believed this. But he's not just talking about himself, he's talking to us. He will find the people who are willing to inherit the tradition of your commitment and expand it to the world. A tree grows silently to maturity, but when the time is ripe, it naturally bears fruit, which the entire universe will then be able to appreciate. If this is true of a humble tree, how much more is it true of men and women who are laying the foundation of goodness for the future of the world? Please join me in prayer. Most beloved Heavenly Parent, we come before you this morning as your children. We come with humility, knowing that we are in some ways just very small players in this world stage, that our life is brief, and in some ways we're just like a vapor in the wind. And yet we also come before you as your children, to whom we have great value. And you have great hope in us, and you have great love for us. And we can't underestimate the power of your love, and how quickly you can take something that is broken and heal it completely. How quickly you can take a life that is barreling down a dead-end track and use it as a force for good. How quickly the problems in this world could be solved if we have people who have hearts centered on you and who have a love for this world like you have, Heavenly Parent. So I pray that we can still be humble, but that we can be humbled by your love and in awe of the possibilities of what you created for us. And I pray that our dreams cannot be to just create our own little empires, which will fall quickly, but to build your kingdom and to find what you are calling us to. What job are you calling us to? What role do you want us to play in your kingdom? And that we can embrace it, and we can be willing to make that investment, and be willing to overcome the challenges to play our part. because we've seen in our own lives how quickly your love can transform us. And we know that that's possible in this world too, Heavenly Parent, especially through our families. And Jesus' love, your love has been transforming people through Jesus for thousands of years. And this world would not be as in good of a place as it is without that. And yet you still want to do more. You want to heal families. You want to transform this world through the whole love. Love that is completely full, from parental love through children's love, through our siblings, and that expands to this world. Thank you so much for our true parents' life, for our true Father who lived this with every fiber of his being and gave his life to convey these words and these truths to us. And we will not let his legacy fade. We will not abandon him like the disciples initially did, Heavenly Parent. We will instead carry that love forward. True Fathers often said that a parent desires their children to be even greater than they are. And he would even say that you, God, would want us to be better than you. We can't even comprehend what that really means, but I don't think that you mean for us to limit ourselves. So I pray we can embrace your love, we can embrace our life that we have, and give our best to actualize true love. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, blessed and true family. Amen, and adieu. Thank you.